If you've been anywhere on the internet lately, you've probably seen the leaked photos and heard the explosive comments about Brittney Griner's gender.
Brittney Griner is, in fact, a man.
Now, LeBron James is finally weighing in.
I was trying to imagine it, and it's hard for me to even put myself into what she's going through.
But instead of clearing the air, LeBron's response is raising even more questions, and the fallout from this leak might shake up her entire position on the women's team. Let me break it down. The storm that never came. The rumor that Brittney Griner is secretly a man has been floating around online for years, but it exploded to new heights after photos leaked of her playing basketball with what some claimed looked like a flat chest. Now, according to the facts out there, Brittney Griner is a cisgender woman, born female on October 18, 1990. Multiple fact-checking organizations, including PolitiFact, Newsweek, and AFP Fact Check, have thoroughly investigated and debunked claims suggesting otherwise. These investigations cite birth certificates, medical records, and consistent documentation throughout her life that confirms her female biology. Griner has consistently identified as a cisgender woman and lesbian since publicly coming out in 2013, never wavering from this position or suggesting any confusion about her gender identity. The medical evidence supporting Griner's female biology is comprehensive and unambiguous. In a 2015 ESPN Body Issue interview, she addressed the persistent speculation about her appearance, attributing her deep voice and muscular build to genetics rather than any hormonal or biological anomaly. Healthcare professionals who have reviewed the available evidence consistently conclude that Griner's physical characteristics, her height, voice, and build, fall within the natural variation observed in cisgender women, particularly those who are exceptionally tall and athletic. During her 2022 detention in Russia, false claims circulated that she was ordered to take a DNA gender test or was housed in a men's prison facility. Both allegations were thoroughly debunked by fact-checkers who confirmed that Griner was held in a women's facility throughout her detention and never underwent any form of gender testing. But as expected, not everyone is buying it.
Brittney Griner is, in fact, a man.
The documentation of Griner's female identity extends back to her childhood and adolescence. In her 2014 memoir, In My Skin, she detailed the bullying and harassment she faced as a young person, specifically noting how classmates would call her names and question her gender based on her appearance. These experiences, documented long before she became a professional athlete, provide crucial context for understanding both her resilience and the long history of gender-based harassment she has endured. Family members, childhood friends, and coaches from her early years have consistently supported Griner's account of her identity and experiences. School records from her time at Nimitz High School in Houston, Texas, consistently identify her as female, as do college records from Baylor University. The continuity of this documentation across multiple institutions, time periods, and contexts provides overwhelming evidence of her consistent female identity throughout her life. So where do these persistent rumors originate, and why do they continue to circulate despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary? The answer lies in a toxic combination of societal prejudices, misunderstandings about human biological diversity, and the way certain physical characteristics are weaponized against women who don't conform to narrow standards of femininity. The rumors about Griner's gender began during her high school years and intensified during her college career at Baylor University. Her exceptional height of 6'9", combined with her deep voice, muscular build, and preference for gender non-conforming clothing styles, made her a target for those who believe that successful female athletes must fit traditional feminine presentations. The speculation was amplified by her dominance on the basketball court, where her shot-blocking ability and dunking skills challenged conventional notions of what women's basketball should look like. The psychological roots of these rumors run deep into societal anxieties about gender, sexuality, and athletic achievement. Research in sports sociology has consistently shown that women who excel in sports traditionally coded as masculine, particularly those involving size, strength, or physical dominance, face disproportionate scrutiny about their gender identity and sexual orientation. This scrutiny intensifies when the athletes are also racial minorities or openly LGBTQ+, creating a perfect storm of intersectional discrimination. Griner's case parallels that of South African runner Caster Semenya, who faced years of gender testing and legal challenges, despite consistent documentation of her female identity. The comparison has been made repeatedly since 2013, when Griner was first described as a gender-bending athlete in mainstream media coverage. Both athletes share certain characteristics characteristics: exceptional athletic ability, physical presentations that challenge traditional feminine norms, and backgrounds that make them vulnerable to discriminatory scrutiny. The 2025 resurgence of speculation about Griner's gender appears to be tied to several converging factors. Her on-court incidents with WNBA rookie Caitlin Clark, particularly an elbowing foul during a Phoenix Mercury versus Indiana Fever game, provided a hook for renewed scrutiny. What should have been analyzed as a routine basketball play instead became the launching point for a new wave of conspiracy theories and speculation. One particularly persistent piece of alleged evidence involves an old Instagram video showing Griner topless that allegedly wasn't flagged as nudity by the platform's AI moderation system. Conspiracy theorists claim this suggests the algorithm classified her as male, but this reasoning demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of both AI technology and content moderation systems. Instagram's algorithms are notoriously inconsistent and have been known to miss or misclassify content for numerous reasons that have nothing to do with the gender of the people depicted. Another category of false claims involves allegations that Griner has gotten 2 women pregnant, referring specifically to her ex-wife Glory Johnson's pregnancy during their brief marriage. This represents a particularly insidious form of misinformation that takes a grain of truth. Johnson did become pregnant during their marriage and deliberately misrepresents the circumstances to support false narratives about Griner's biology. Medical records and public statements clearly indicate that Johnson's pregnancy involved IVF procedures with no biological contribution from Griner. The persistence of these rumors in the face of overwhelming contradictory evidence points to what psychologists call motivated reasoning, the tendency to seek out information that confirms existing beliefs while dismissing evidence that challenges those beliefs. For individuals who are uncomfortable with gender nonconforming athletes or who hold prejudiced views about LGBTQ+ individuals, no amount of factual evidence will be sufficient to change their minds because their beliefs are not based on evidence in the first place. The real-world impact of these false narratives extends far beyond online discussions or social media debates. Griner has spoken openly about feeling unsafe at games due to harassment from fans, including chants telling her to go back to Russia and questioning her patriotism. The gender-based harassment represents an additional layer of hostility that affects her ability to focus on basketball and creates genuine concerns for her physical safety.
The bullying and the harassment from fans online, that's a little hard for the league to, deal with, but that's happening in our arenas. It's so easy to put some people out there in that arena. It's so easy to put a few people, around the arena that's just there to act like fans and listen and hear what's going on, and to be able to point these people out so we don't have to deal with that. Because me at a game feeling unsafe because we got people chanting me to go back to Russia or I'm un-American and all this other stuff.
This testimony reveals the intersection between online misinformation and real-world harassment. The false narratives that circulate on social media don't remain confined to digital spaces. They spill over into physical venues where Griner is trying to do her job as a professional athlete. The result is an environment where she must divide her attention between playing basketball and monitoring potential threats from hostile spectators. The broader implications of this misinformation campaign extend beyond Griner herself to affect the entire landscape of women's sports. When successful female athletes face persistent questioning about their gender identity simply for excelling at their sport, it sends a chilling message to young women and girls about the price of athletic achievement. The message becomes, if you're too good, too strong, too dominant, your right to compete as a woman will be questioned. Educational institutions, sports organizations, and medical professionals have consistently supported the scientific consensus that Griner is a cisgender woman. The International Olympic Committee, FIBA, International Basketball, and the WNBA have never questioned her eligibility to compete in women's athletics. This institutional support is based on thorough review of available evidence and adherence to established protocols for determining athletic eligibility. The real LeBron James response. The real story of LeBron James and Brittney Griner isn't about gender speculation or leaked documents. It's about one of the most powerful voices in professional sports using his platform to advocate for a fellow athlete during the darkest period of her life. When Griner was detained in Russia on drug charges in 2022, spending 294 harrowing days in a foreign prison system, LeBron James didn't stay silent. He spoke up, spoke out, and used his influence to keep her story in the public consciousness. On June 6, 2022, James tweeted his support for Griner, who had been detained for over 100 days, saying, "We need to come together and help do whatever we possibly can to bring BG home quickly and safely. Our voice as athletes is stronger together. He emphasized her role as a decorated Olympian and called for U.S. government action. This wasn't a throwaway tweet or a perfunctory show of support. It was a deliberate use of his massive platform to amplify Griner's plight. But it was James's appearance on his HBO show The Shop that really demonstrated the depth of his thinking about Griner's situation. In what would become one of his most controversial comments of 2022, James put himself in Griner's shoes and asked the hard questions that many were thinking, but few were brave enough to voice publicly.
I was trying to imagine it, and it's hard for me to even put myself into what she's going through. Like, she's such a great human being, a great person. Obviously, I've been in her presence a few times, and you know, you always feel like, you know, if you're from a certain place, you always feel like they got your back. And in a sense, like now, how could she feel like America has her back? Like, I would be feeling like, do I even want to go back to America if I've been gone over 130 days and I feel like it's been zero effort.
This comment, which aired in a trailer for The Shop Uninterrupted, sent shockwaves through sports media and beyond. Critics immediately pounced on James, accusing him of being unpatriotic and anti-American. The backlash was swift and intense, forcing James to clarify his position just one day later. On July 13, 2022, James took to X, formerly Twitter, to address the controversy. My comments on The Shop regarding Brittney Griner wasn't knocking our beautiful country. I was simply saying how she's probably feeling emotionally, along with so many other emotions, thoughts, etc. inside that cage she's been in for over 100 plus days. Long story short, bring her home. What's remarkable about this clarification isn't just that James felt compelled to make it, but the language he used. The phrase "inside that cage" reveals a deep understanding of what Griner was experiencing. Not just physical confinement, but the psychological toll of being trapped in a foreign country, unable to return home, while her fate was decided by geopolitical forces far beyond her control. When the full episode of The Shop aired on July 14th, 2022, James expanded on his thoughts, providing even more context for his controversial comments. He spoke about the difficulty of truly understanding what Griner was going through, saying, "It's hard for me to even put myself into what she's going through." But he also touched on something that would prove to be prescient, the idea that public reaction might vary depending on who was detained. James suggested that if it had been him or another male superstar in Griner's position, the response from both the media and the government might have been different. This observation echoed comments that Griner herself would later make, highlighting the intersection of gender, race, and sexuality and how society values different lives and different stories. The depth of James's empathy becomes even more apparent when we consider the broader context of his comments. These statements were recorded around 130 days into Griner's detention during late May or early June 2022, when hope for her quick release was fading and the reality of a prolonged detention was setting in. James wasn't just offering perfunctory support. He was grappling with the genuine complexity of the situation and the emotional toll it was taking on everyone involved. When Griner was finally released in December 2022 as part of a prisoner exchange, James was among the many athletes who celebrated her return.
It's amazing, especially around the holidays where she can be with her family. Get back and, for us as brotherhood, sisterhood, we welcome her with open arms and love and support, and just happy to have her back home on U.S. soil, that's for sure.
The language James used here, brotherhood and sisterhood, is particularly significant. It represents a recognition that the athletic community transcends traditional boundaries, that solidarity among athletes doesn't depend on sport, gender, or sexual orientation. It's a statement of inclusion and support that stands in stark contrast to the divisive rhetoric often found in discussions about gender non-conforming athletes. James continued his reflection on Griner's ordeal, providing insight into how her experience affected the broader athletic community.
Being in Russia for as long as she was, inhumane living conditions. I think they showed the bed she was living in. And, when I first seen her, I didn't even know it was her because she cut her dreads. I don't know if it was voluntarily or what, but it's always good to have one of your own, back. Even though we get a chance to play this game and we live in this little box where we don't have a real insight. I don't want to say insight, but we don't have this reality because we live in this box of basketball where everything is going well. You kind of forget about everything outside, and that kind of just put us back into reality, knowing that we're blessed to do what we do every single day because it's people in this world, and our sister who's going through bigger things than basketball. So it's always good to be at her home, and we're glad she's here.
This reflection reveals something profound about how James processes the world around him. He acknowledges that professional athletes often exist in a box of basketball, where they're insulated from many of life's harsh realities. Griner's detention served as a wake-up call, a reminder that even elite athletes are vulnerable to forces beyond their control, and that the privileges of professional sports don't extend to protection from international incidents or geopolitical conflicts. The fact that James noted Griner's changed appearance, specifically that she had cut her dreads and he initially didn't recognize her, speaks to his attention to detail and genuine concern for her well-being. These aren't the observations of someone making perfunctory comments for public relations purposes. They're the observations of someone who was genuinely worried about a fellow athlete and paying close attention to signs of how her ordeal had affected her. When James spoke about Griner's detention, he did so with nuance, empathy, and genuine concern. He was willing to take risks, including facing criticism for his comments about America, because he believed it was important to keep Griner's story in the public consciousness. The contrast is particularly stark when we consider how some other public figures have handled similar situations. Conservative commentators like Sebastian Gorka, Nick Adams, and Bridget Gabriel criticized Griner during her detention, often with their followers linking to gender conspiracies in the replies. James took the opposite approach, focusing on her humanity, her vulnerability, and the importance of bringing her home safely, understanding the real issues at stake. But let's step back and examine what's really happening to Brittney Griner, because her experience illuminates broader issues that extend far beyond basketball courts and social media feuds. Griner has faced persistent speculation about her gender since her high school days, largely due to her exceptional height of 6'9", deep voice, muscular build, flat chest, and gender non-conforming style. These physical characteristics, combined with her lesbian identity and preference for traditionally masculine clothing, have made her a target for those who believe that women's sports should only include women who fit narrow, traditional definitions of femininity. The psychological toll of this constant scrutiny cannot be overstated.
No, would never say that. Like, there's no place for that in our league. Wouldn't say that.
When asked about allegations that she used racial language toward Caitlin Clark, Griner's response reveals someone who has learned to be extremely careful about her words, knowing that everything she says will be scrutinized, analyzed, and potentially weaponized against her. This careful self-monitoring extends to how she discusses the harassment she faces from fans.
There's times in games where I've talked with some of my fellow people that play in the league, and it's just, yeah, there's certain places where it's like, what's going on here? This ain't even banter. Like, you're not even going against me as a fan. Like, you're going against me on a personal level. These are attacks, the slurs that are being said, in certain gyms and stuff, like around the league. Is just no place for it.
The distinction Griner makes here is crucial. She's not talking about typical fan behavior, or even hostile but sports-related heckling. She's describing personal attacks that cross the line from sports fandom into harassment based on her identity. This isn't about basketball performance or team loyalty. It's about targeting someone for who they are as a person. The impact goes beyond emotional distress. Griner has spoken about how this harassment affects her ability to focus on the game itself, creating a feedback loop where the very thing she's trying to do, play basketball at the highest level, becomes more difficult because of the hostile environment created by those who question her right to be there.
That's when it's like, all right, I can't even focus on the game because I'm trying to figure out what your intentions are, because this world crazy and we've seen some wild things. Anything can happen.
This fear for her physical safety represents perhaps the most troubling aspect of the entire situation. When an athlete has to spend mental energy during games worrying about the intentions of people in the crowd, we've moved far beyond sports competition into something much darker. The reference to wild things happening in this world suggests that Griner is thinking about real-world violence, not just verbal harassment. The rumors about Griner's gender are not new. They date back to at least 2013, when articles highlighted her as a gender-bending athlete, challenging norms in women's sports. What's changed in 2025 is the sophistication of the misinformation campaigns, the platforms available for spreading them. These videos often feature pseudoscientific analysis, complete with charts, graphs, and supposed expert testimony. They create an illusion of legitimacy around claims that would be immediately dismissed if presented without this veneer of scientific authority. The use of AI analysis and medical terminology makes the content seem more credible to viewers who may lack the expertise to evaluate the actual quality of the evidence being presented. The recent surge in speculation appears tied to Griner's on-court incidents with Caitlin Clark, particularly an elbowing foul during a Phoenix Mercury versus Indiana Fever game. What should have been analyzed analyzed as a routine basketball play instead became the launching point for renewed gender speculation, demonstrating how any interaction involving Griner can be twisted to serve pre-existing narratives about her identity. This represents a perfect storm of factors that make Griner particularly vulnerable to this type of harassment. As a Black gay woman who doesn't conform to traditional gender presentations, she sits at the intersection of multiple forms of discrimination. The rumors often involve claims that she has gotten 2 women pregnant, referring to her ex-wife Glory Johnson's pregnancy during their brief marriage, though no details confirm Griner's biological involvement. This type of misinformation takes a grain of truth. Johnson did become pregnant during their marriage, and twists it to support false narratives about Griner's biological sex. The psychological sophistication of these attacks shouldn't be underestimated. By focusing on reproductive capacity and sexual relationships, the rumors target some of the most personal and private aspects of human experience. They force Griner to defend not just her athletic achievements or her right to compete, but her most fundamental sense of self and identity. When Griner speaks about legislation targeting transgender athletes, her position is clear and unambiguous.
Everyone deserves the right to play. Everyone deserves the right to come here, sit in these seats, and feel safe and not feel like there's a threat or they can't be who they are. Definitely will be speaking up against that legislation and those laws that are trying to be passed, for sure.
This statement reveals something important about Griner's worldview. Even while facing persistent harassment and speculation about her own gender identity, she advocates for the rights of others who face similar or even greater discrimination. Her support for transgender athletes comes from a place of understanding what it means to be targeted for not fitting traditional gender norms. The broader context of this controversy reveals troubling patterns in how we discuss women's sports and female athletes. Research has shown that women who excel in traditionally masculine-coded sports, particularly those involving size, strength, or aggression, face disproportionate scrutiny about their gender identity and sexual orientation. This scrutiny often intensifies when the athletes are also racial minorities, or openly LGBTQ+. The case of South African runner Caster Semenya provides a parallel example of how this dynamic plays out on the international stage. Semenya faced years of gender testing and legal battles, not because there was credible evidence that she was anything other than a woman, but because her success in middle-distance running, combined with her physical appearance and South African background, made her a target for those uncomfortable with her dominance in women's athletics. The comparison between Griner and Semenya has been made repeatedly in articles dating back to 2013, suggesting that this isn't really about individual athletes at all. It's about broader anxieties around gender, race, sexuality, and who gets to participate in women's sports. The fact that these controversies tend to focus on Black women from the global South, or those who openly identify as LGBTQ+, is not coincidental. The real story here is Brittney Griner remains a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, a dominant force in women's basketball, and a trailblazing advocate for LGBTQ+ rights. No amount of speculation, rumor-mongering, or manufactured controversy can change those facts. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.